Hello, welcome to Meet Me at the Movies. Noel T. Manning II here. Hope you're all doing well, and hope you're having fun this summer. You know, summer has officially started at the box office. It did that. We've already talked about the preseason. We've talked about how the summer is designed for popcorn flicks. We gave you a sneak preview a couple weeks ago, for 2 weeks, looking at that summer preview, and here we are to talk about one of those films we teased just a few weeks ago, Thomas. It's a film that's the seventh installment in a franchise that began back in 2007. We're talking about the Transformers, and not, actually we're talking about that franchise, but the film we're going to review is Transformers: Rise of the Beast.
Yeah, and there are beasts in this movie, and they also rise. So if you're there.
Right.
If that's what you're there for, then you won't be disappointed.
It lives up to its name. It truly does live up to its name. This is a franchise, Thomas, that's made a lot of money over the years, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's up to $4.8 billion total worldwide through the first 6 films. So that's the 5 Michael Bay films, and then we had basically the beginning of this anthology series. You had Bumblebee back in 2018, which was directed by Stephen Knight, and let's see, you had Haley Steinfeld in that film, who was just absolutely marvelous, and I think that was actually my favorite of the franchise, and this is kind of more tonally similar to that. Rise of the Beast is more tonally similar to Bumblebee than it is to the Michael Bay 5 films that he made.
Yeah, this franchise has really kind of had its ups and downs. Some of them I truly liked, some of them I actually truly hated, including The Last Night was one of those that if anybody goes back and looks at the review I did of that, I love Anthony Hopkins, but I'm like, dude, what the heck were you thinking, man? What were you thinking? Mark Wahlberg.
There's a little bit of paycheck, maybe.
Maybe, and Wahlberg too. And so this film, Thomas, I think is a lot more character driven. Much like Bumblebee, we really appreciated that magic that Bumblebee brought to us. So I think this particular film, Rise of the Beast, it really does feel like it's more in that vein. When we talk about a time period piece, Bumblebee took place in the 80s. This particular film is set in 1994, and so one of the things right off the bat when you're watching this, you're gonna either love or hate the soundtrack. And if you're like me, you're going to love the soundtrack. That was the year that I married my bride, was 1994. So I really felt connected incredibly well to a lot of the music that was used for this interesting jukebox musical action film.
Yeah, so this is directed by Stephen Caple Jr., who also directed Creed 2, and he just really has an interesting style and the atmosphere he creates with his stories. And you mentioned the 90s hip-hop that we have here. It takes place in the first act primarily in New York City, so obviously the hip-hop of that era in that city was just a huge part of the culture. And we got needle drops from the Wu-Tang Clan and A Tribe Called Quest and Biggie Smalls, and so I was really on board in that first act when we're kind of developing the city of New York as a character in the story and as something that complements the development of these characters. And the human characters in this film are pretty interesting in themselves. Anthony Ramos plays the character of Noah Diaz, and then he has a little brother named Chris, who's played by Dean Scott Vasquez, and that relationship between those two was, I think, what really grabbed me. Not everything else worked in the film emotionally, but that central emotional connection between Noah and his little brother, that always had me with it.
I loved Bumblebee, going back to Bumblebee for that very reason. It felt a lot more heartfelt than just chaos and noise, which was there at The Last Night. It was chaos, noise, mayhem, and not in a good way. Bumblebee had that heart to it, and I love the relationships that we saw in Bumblebee. And you mentioned those two characters, play brothers, Vasquez and Ramos. I loved their chemistry. They worked really, really well. And there was another character, supporting character, Dominique Fishback, who starred as an intern for a museum, but she was much more well-versed than some of the experts in understanding artifacts. And she played a very key and pivotal role in this storyline. And honestly, those were the three main cast members that were humans. The rest of them were the voice talents that we got to hear that portrayed the Transformers, both evil and not so evil. The comic relief in this, Thomas, I really love too, and I think that's something that felt so organic in this. And there's a particular SNL alum who got a lot of screen time, at least the voice did.
Yeah. So I think you were probably laughing the hardest out of anybody in the theater whenever Pete Davidson delivered a line, and I am a big fan of a lot of Pete's stuff on SNL. His segments on Weekend Update have always lived up. But and definitely in this film, he fires off a few one-liners that had me chuckling. I don't think everything landed for me as much as it did with you on that account, but like, you are a representative of a certain demographic in the audience who is gonna be laughing as hard as you. So if you and like a theater full of people of your age range probably got together, they would probably find it just as funny as you did. So.
Yeah, I think anybody who was either, in high school, college, coming of age time period, maybe becoming an adult and starting a family around the early 1990s, I think that you're going to really appreciate this film and appreciate certain aspects. We've already talked about the music, but also, there are specific things that are connected to pre-cell phones. You talk about pagers and stuff like that. And so you forget, because we've had cell phones around for so long now, you forget that at that time it was very much a rarity to have that. And so I think they really paid special attention to what was happening in 1994, including, you mentioned New York City. Another part of this film takes place in Peru. And there's a particular scene where you see this mountain ablaze in fire. And if you look in the history books, there was a specific volcano or two that showed a little bit of eruption power in 1994. And so I think from a historical standpoint, they had a lot of fun with this movie as well.
Yeah, that was something that, as we were driving back home, you pulled that up to look at. I was driving, just so we make that clear. I was behind the wheel. Dad was in the passenger seat, and pulled up. He was like, was there actually a volcanic eruption in Peru in 1994? And sure enough, there you go. So I don't think, not many people other than history buffs or people who live in Peru would have caught that. But hey, good job on the background research there, Dad. And it's interesting because usually I'm a fan of these globetrotting adventures and these films that take us all across the world. But for whatever reason, kind of once we got out of New York City, I kept finding myself wishing we would go back. And I do think part of that is the way that in Bumblebee they made California so pivotal to that relationship between the character Bumblebee and Haley Steinfeld's character. And for this, New York City felt so important to the Anthony Ramos' character. And so there were times where I kind of wish we would go back to, his hometown there. But, I guess not everybody's going to have that same reaction. And I guess for you, I think you probably appreciated some of the globetrotting stuff a little bit more than me.
Yeah, I did. I really did. And this movie, I think, is equally part Transformers. It's equally part Indiana Jones. They even get a little meta as they're talking about Indiana Jones and other films get mentions in this. And then throw in Night at the Museum and a little bit of Jurassic Park. I think you're going to find elements of that sprinkled throughout this that I thought was pretty interesting, Thomas. And we'll even throw in Avengers Endgame because there was one particular scene that I turned to you and I said, Avengers Assemble,
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they actually use the same like VFX template for this one particular scene that takes place on the final battlefield that they used in the Avengers Endgame final battle when you have Thanos' army over here and then the Avengers army over here and they all converge. Like just the way that they cut between the action and the way the camera moved through the action seemed like it was right out of Endgame. So I'd be curious to compare those scenes side by side and see if they actually might have used some of those templates, which is possible because they've done that in other films before. So
Yeah, yeah. Other voice talent, we have Oscar winner, and we also have a Ted Lasso alum showing up in this too, Thomas.
yeah, you mentioned the Oscar winner. We have Michelle Yeoh. We also have Ron Perlman, Peter Dinklage, and the Ted Lasso alum that we have is Cristo Fernandez, also known as Danny Rojas. And
Football is life.
Football is life. It absolutely is. And in this case, I guess transforming is life. So
Exactly. To me, Thomas, this movie was fun. It was a popcorn flick. I did appreciate seeing acting talent that I would not consider A-list acting talent, where everyone knows their names, other than the voice talent we talked about. But the human actors, it's not like the Tom Cruises or the Mark Wahlbergs or the Sir Anthony Hopkinses. These are names that some people are familiar with, but not everybody. And so I appreciated that about it, and I really thought that they did spectacular. And I'm glad that they chose to cast it this particular way.
yeah, and basically Anthony Ramos and then Dominique Fishback were the co-leads of this film. And I'm glad you mentioned Fishback earlier. She really is a talented actress. A few years ago, she was in Judas and the Black Messiah, and her performance there just kind of left me just flat on my back because it was so powerful. And obviously, comparing Judas and the Black Messiah to Transformers: Rise of the Beast, those couldn't be more different. Couldn't be on opposite ends of the entertainment spectrum. So I think that showcases her versatility as a performer, and hopefully this is a sign that she'll continue to get more and more roles and more recognition. And I think Fishback was excellent. So was Ramos and Dean Scott Vasquez, as we mentioned, the little brother.
Runtime for this is just under 2 hours. You will find a mid-credit scene as well that you may want to stick around for. And
especially if you're a fan of Michael Kelly.
That's exactly right. Love that guy. Absolutely love that guy. I also did think, Thomas, even though it was less than 2 hours, we've seen these films go into the 2.5 hour range, and we're like, oh my goodness, why? For this one, I could have done with this being about 10 minutes shorter. But I didn't feel overwhelmed by it as I have in some of the previous Transformer films.
Yeah, if we had stretched it out another 20 minutes or so, it might have been feeling that way. But ultimately, I had a much different feeling walking out of this than I did walking out of Transformers: The Last Night back in 2017, which I remember you and I walking out of that theater just kind of completely befuddled at what we just witnessed.
Yep. Final thoughts for me. I did enjoy the humor in this. I thought the casting, both those who we saw on camera and the voice talent worked. I thought the sound design, the soundtrack, all those things really did click for me. There were times it felt just a little bloated, like I said, about 10 minutes too long for me. But overall, I truly enjoyed this as a popcorn flick. There wasn't a ton of things that I felt were new about it, but I am appreciating how they're doing an interesting prequel aspect to the Transformers. We are finding that there are new Transformers out there we've never heard of before. So that is something new. There's always a new villain. There are always some new heroes that are gonna rise, and some of those are from the most unlikely of characters. And we saw that when we saw Shia LaBeouf in that first one, who was really a very unlikely hero. It was not somebody that you would pick to rise and save the world and the universe.
That would be like if I was chosen to be the vessel for Bumblebee or something. So, yeah.
and that's the same here. Even though the lead character is a military veteran, he's not somebody that anybody ever considered a leader, and that's one of the things that I think kind of held him back. And you see that within his character, but when he has to, he finds a way to rise to the occasion.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said you truly enjoyed this film. I'll say that I had a relatively decent amount of fun. I think I was a little bit more lukewarm on this than you, but I walked away from it. I couldn't have been. This isn't one of those movies where I was going to walk away like mad or like feeling extremely let down. So it generally delivered on my expectations. So, and I would watch it again if that's your metric that you're using here. Then yeah, I'd watch it again. I watched it with my mom, who I know that you're looking forward to introducing it to. So I think it is a good early summer popcorn flick. So
yeah, I think it's one of the downfalls for it. For audiences is sandwiched in between Spider-Verse and is sandwiched in between The Flash, and that's going to be a problem. It's going to have 1 week of being decent at the box office. It may not even be number one because of the legs that Spider-Verse is having. So I think they could have placed this at a different part of the summer. I think that's something that should have happened. I'm blaming the studios, blaming Paramount for that. We'll see how it unfolds, but that's something that I think is going to come back to bite them.
Yeah, and we saw Spider-Verse just completely overperform last week in its opening weekend. 120 million domestic. The first Spider-Verse film only had 35 million domestically in its opening weekend. So I think Spider-Verse has a very real chance to come in at number one again this week. So with a massive budget film like Rise of the Beast, it may struggle to make back or at least turn a huge profit. It'll probably make back its budget, but turning a huge profit in such a stacked summer lineup is going to be difficult. So yeah, I am a little bit curious to know what the Paramount was thinking with the way they've delivered it. But you know, I'm not a studio exec, so
exactly, and you probably never will be.
It's a very good thing, and never will be. So,
well, I think you and I, even though we tended to appreciate this movie differently and maybe for different reasons, I think our grade was the same. I know it was when we first came out. So what is now that you had a chance to digest it, what's your report card grade for this?
Oh, yeah, I'll give it a B-.
Okay, and I'm right there with you, B-. Good film, one worth checking out if you're looking for kind of an escape from life and discover that maybe our world almost was at the end in 1994, and that was not because I got married. Do appreciate you guys spending time with us right here on Meet Me at the Movies. Thomas Manning there. You one final comment?
I just got to say it. I am Optimus Prime.
I am Optimus Prime. My name is Optimus Prime. My name is Optimus Prime.
Yeah, I told you. It was right there. It was right there. We do appreciate you spending time with us right here on Meet Me at the Movies. You can follow us on C19 TV, courtesy of Cleveland Community College always. And we do appreciate you spending time with us. If you're listening to the podcast through WGWG or checking out that radio show, we appreciate that as well. And you can find that at WGWG.org. So until next time, for Meet Me at the Movies and for Thomas Manning, I'm Noel T. Manning II. That's a wrap.
Many films to view until we meet again. Next time we see you, we'll gladly fill you in. We'll tell about the happy and the sad ones. We'll talk about the good ones and the bad ones. Many films to view till we meet again.